single dad was tricked into dating a deaf paralyzed girl. What she said left him in tears. Hook. What would you do if someone you loved kept a secret from you, not to hurt you, but because they were too afraid you'd walk away? What if that secret turned out to be the very thing that changed your life forever? This is a story about a man who thought he was being played, but what he discovered instead broke him wide open in the most beautiful way possible. Some stories don't start with grand gestures or fairy tale moments. Some start with a blind date, a nervous laugh, and a truth that nobody was ready for. This is one of those stories. Subscribe segment. Before we go any further, if you're new here, welcome to Heartfelt Moments, the channel where we share real stories about real people and the kindness that connects us all. If this kind of storytelling moves you, please hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and drop a comment below, telling us about a time someone's kindness changed your life. We read every single one. Now, let's get into this story. Main story: Marcus was 41 years old, a single dad from Columbus, Ohio, raising his 9-year-old daughter Lily on his own. His wife had passed away 3 years earlier from cancer, and since then, Marcus had poured everything into his daughter and his job as a high school history teacher. He wasn't looking for love. He wasn't even sure he remembered what it felt like, but his sister, Dana, had other plans. Dana had been pushing Marcus to just try for over a year. She told him she'd found someone, a woman named Claire, and that she thought they'd get along. Marcus resisted for weeks. Finally, exhausted from arguing, he agreed to one dinner. Just one. What Dana didn't tell him, what she deliberately left out, was that Claire was deaf, and had been paralyzed from the waist down since a car accident 6 years prior. Dana was afraid Marcus would say no before he even gave Claire a chance. So she said nothing. Marcus showed up to the restaurant in a sport coat he hadn't worn since his wife's funeral. He was already uncomfortable. And when he saw the woman at the table, beautiful, warm-eyed, sitting in a wheelchair, with a small notepad in front of her, his heart sank. Not out of cruelty, out of panic. He felt completely unprepared. He felt tricked. He almost left. He stood near the entrance for a full 30 seconds, hand on the door frame, but then Claire looked up and smiled at him, not a desperate smile, not a pitying one. Just a real calm, I see you kind of smile, and something in Marcus made him walk forward. They communicated through writing at first. Marcus would speak, and Claire would write her responses on the notepad, passing it across the table. It was slow. It was awkward. Marcus knocked over his water glass within the first 10 minutes. Claire laughed, a bright, silent laugh that made her whole face light up, and wrote, "First date record, you win." He laughed too. For the first time in a long time, he laughed without forcing it. By the end of dinner, they had filled both sides of 3 pages. They talked about movies, about teaching, about grief, about Lily. Claire had lost her hearing gradually, as a teenager, and she wrote about how silence had once felt like a punishment, but had slowly become something she made peace with. She wrote, "I used to think I lost a sense, now I think I just gained a different kind of attention." Marcus read that line twice. He drove home that night with his chest feeling strange full in a way it hadn't been in years. He called Dana, and told her what she did was wrong. Dana said, "I know, are you going to see her again?" He didn't answer. He hung up. Then he texted Claire, "Same time next week." Over the following months, Marcus and Claire built something slow and steady and real. Lily adored her. The little girl learned basic sign language from YouTube videos so she could talk to Claire directly, and the first time she signed, "You're pretty," across the dinner table, Claire covered her mouth and her eyes filled with tears. Marcus watched that moment and felt something unlock in him, some part of himself he had boarded up after losing his wife. He realized that kindness isn't just a grand sacrifice. Sometimes it's just showing up. Sometimes it's a 9-year-old girl watching videos at midnight because she wants someone to feel seen. One evening, about 8 months in, Marcus was sitting beside Claire on the porch. She handed him her phone, where she'd typed something longer than usual. He read it slowly. It said, "I spent years thinking I was too much, too complicated, too limited, too hard to love. I stopped hoping anyone would stay. Then your sister tricked you into meeting me, and you stayed anyway. Not because you pitied me, because you saw me. That's the kindest thing anyone has ever done. I just needed you to know that." Marcus put the phone down. He covered his face with his hands, and he cried the kind of deep, releasing cry that comes when something broken finally starts to heal. Conclusion: here's what this story teaches us. Kindness isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it looks like staying when you want to leave. Sometimes it looks like a child learning a new language, just to make one person smile. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, it looks like someone seeing us fully, all our complicated edges, and choosing to stay anyway. Marcus wasn't tricked into a relationship. He was tricked into opening his heart, and what he found there was more than he ever thought he deserved. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to be reminded that they are worthy of kindness too. Because you never know whose life your small act of love might completely change.